We are live, I believe. And unless I've gotten some indication otherwise, I'm going to proceed as if we are live. And so it's a time of the week, time of the month that we are going to be doing Geek Speak. And today we are talking about planning for the next year. What are
I'm
the.
not seeing anything.
Are
Oh,
you.
wait, wait.
My.
Pip, we can
Oh
hear
my
you
gosh.
totally.
Are,
Okay, yes.
are we live?
Yeah, the fish was live. Like, it just showed the icon saying live. So I'll share it into group now.
Okay, that's awesome. I've got confirmation that we are live. It wasn't just the fish that showed up. So that's good to know. And my name is Phelan. And today we are talking about doing strategic marketing planning, especially going into the new year, because it's that time, December, when we're thinking about the next year.
Yes, and I'm Rina from Little Works Indie Media.
Awesome.
And should we just jump right on in? So I just want to clarify that this is kind of like a very much a sort of a 360 kind of overview of how
Hmm.
to approach the things to think about. It's not actually going to, you won't have a plan um, by following along and jotting things down, but you will have definitely a really good idea of what to think about, how to organize, and then make sure you don't miss any of the steps. So that's where we were thinking, because we would really need at least a few hours to go through in any detail a
Yeah.
proper marketing plan. So, sorry, I could hear you breathe.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna jump in because the first point that I kind of want to go off that why not only that it would take a few hours, but also that there's a lot of instability right now. Things are not as predictable as that you could have said a few years ago, and so I would say that getting too attached to a specific plan it might be your downfall. So that would be my first kind of point is like be flexible and be
Yeah,
adaptive to what the changing conditions are and be aware that you may have this beautifully laid out plan and then it meets the real world, right? And so that's why.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think we all have a real clear memory of doing that during COVID. Everyone had to pivot, and that's sort of something that we should be doing on, hopefully, on a much lesser scale regularly throughout the year when sort of these littler issues hopefully come up and not the big giant ones where we're really having to change things up.
Yeah.
But with that flexibility, you still have to have some rigor around your plan. You don't want to just fly by the seat of your pants. And what I see most people doing, a lot of people doing, not maybe most is not quite right, but a lot of people are doing is they build the plan, they get excited, they have some kind of sales goal idea in their mind, and then they don't review their plan for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest ways to not meet your targets is to not actually review and stay on top of what's happening. And when you're pivoting, you should be pivoting with your plan. These are let's pretend we have paper plans right here. You need to pivot by looking at your plan and reorganizing it. And then your marketing plan. I'm just going to finish this last thought, Phelan, and then you can take on the next one. The marketing plan should really be super closely aligned to your business plan. So, a marketing plan is not a business plan. A lot of people actually get those two things confused. But your marketing plan, your business plan is more like high level strategic and sort of plans to grow your team, plans to do all sorts of other things. Now, you're going to have to actually make those two plans merge if you're going to want to scale up and you're creating a sales and marketing plan to do massive scaling. You're going to have to figure out what are the resources that I require so that your business plan is on target too. You need those two things working very well together. You can't just do one or the other. It just that'll get you into hot water, or at least you have to address the issues from each of those types of plans. Okay, so do you want to add anything to that, Phelan?
Yeah, I was just going to touch on like one concept to keep in mind when you're thinking about well, like flexibility and adapting your plan is a thing called the lieutenant's guidance. So
Mm.
it's an old military strategy, which is like obviously before there were like radios and you could have like real time communication. Obviously, you couldn't plan out every part of a battle. So what a general would do is tell all his lieutenants, "I want to take that hill." So how that happens can adapt to whatever the changing circumstances are, but you know what your overall objective is, and to
Yeah,
be able to be flexible about like, oh, this changed, this condition changed. Okay, but we can get around here in order to get the ultimate objective. So that's kind of like
that's right.
a mode of thinking to have in mind when you're kind of going over what it is that you're trying to overall accomplish. Like not to get
Yeah.
bogged down into the specifics of it because like
Well,
you're saying it can change, and
absolutely.
it's
But
also
I
good.
still think you need to get into the specifics of it. Like you need to know the how. Like exactly what you're saying is that you want to climb that hill. You need to know how you're going to do it for sure. And those for me are the specifics. And the how can absolutely change. So you can actually try something and have a full intention of trying a new marketing channel, for example, and then realize three months in, some channels do take about 3 months to really learn
Yeah,
and figure out and decide if it's working or not. And then you can pivot that piece, but you still know that you want to be getting this many leads from your website, and how are you going to do that?
yeah, exactly. I also think of it as like zooming in macro view to micro view,
Yeah,
and also
regularly.
yeah, and also the ability to jump back because I've had situations where I'm like talking to a client or something, and they're like hyper focused on one particular little detail, and I'm like, no, we need to back up. Like, what was the goal we're trying to accomplish here? Is that actually being
Yeah,
accomplished with what we're doing? And being able to take a step back and because it's super easy to kind of get like really like zoomed in.
totally. Totally. And where I see that happening a lot is in things like content. So people can
Hmm.
actually understand the content of their business. They understand what messages they want out there and what their products are, services are. They really focus on the content and they actually don't focus quite nearly enough on the distribution. And that's the piece that I think is actually more important because you can take one good piece of content. I've done this for clients before, one good piece of content and run that one piece of content for 6 months while you get it in front of 300,000 people in order
Hmm.
to get those goals to happen. So whereas some clients, they really focus in on the messaging, they want to change that message every 2 weeks or every week, and that's actually not helpful because you can't even test content. You can barely test content in about a week. It takes about 9 days to test content properly on social, at least,
Yeah.
and it takes a little longer. It takes a little longer on Google Ads, and that's where I feel like most people get a little bit lost. They focus on the things that they're comfortable with, and they are comfortable with the messaging of their business and the brand of their business, but not necessarily the distribution and where they're finding those people, how they target their market, who their market should be, and that sort of thing. All
Yeah,
right.
I would even say going off the distribution, that's like a better way to think. A better way to think about it is like, how can I make this one piece of content like stretch it out
Yeah.
a lot further,
Yeah.
and thinking about the different ways because basically what you're trying to do is put less. It's easier to make one piece of content fit in multiple like
Yeah.
platforms than it is to make multiple pieces of content, and
Yes.
as well like the content like there's so much out there right now.
Less is best. Less is more. Less
Yeah,
is more. Yeah, because you're not gonna punch through necessarily. Organic is very hard to punch through. You're gonna
yeah,
use ads to punch through, and you need to make sure that that targeting is right on, and that you're actually testing that content to make sure it's right. So we don't want to take it from somebody who thinks the messaging is going to be fine. We want to test it and tell them how the messaging needs to be in order to actually convert those leads into paying clients, and that's sort of the point of
yeah.
distribution in my mind. And then the other thing about that is I was just reading something here. Oh yeah, so generally speaking, if you're starting out new and you've never done a marketing and maybe you don't even have a business plan organized, my favorite place to start is is um, is with what are your revenue goals, and then try and work from that. If you had revenue for the previous year, you can look at maybe increasing that by a percentage. whatever you think you can manage. But there is also this really cool tool at Futurepreneurs. I think that's futurepreneurs.com, and it's a build your business plan widget, and it's
Hmm.
super great because it breaks. You can actually you create an account and you organize the questions. You just answer one question at a time, and then it saves that for you. And then at the end, when you're finished, you just hit print, and it pops out this really fantastic looking business plan for you, and it'll make you think about all of the steps that you require. And then in that business plan, there's usually pieces about marketing, and then you can go from there in terms of marketing. Oh, and distribution, and we'll put the Futurepreneurs link in the comments. But just with distribution, there's one coach that I was working with who was it's a fairly large company. They were saying that you need about five. You want to get up to about five channels for your marketing. So one of them obviously is word of mouth because that's usually where we start. And then
Hmm.
you start, and then usually social can be one, and then maybe Google Ads is another. And you want to have five, at least five running at once all the time so that you can make sure that you're investigating, testing, and organizing those channels for your benefits.
Yeah, as well as like making sure that you're getting the right message to different audiences, right?
Hmm.
Because like what you're gonna say on Facebook is different than LinkedIn, and it's different on
Yeah,
YouTube, right? Because like people go to
yeah,
these platforms expecting different things, and you
yeah.
could still tweak your message to fit that platform, and it's
That's
still,
right.
um, but of course it requires testing and all that good stuff as well.
Yeah, so if you want to test, that means that you have to actually be collecting the data. So I think we had a point on that. I think we're going a little bit out of our order, but this seems to be going in a good way, I think.
Yeah,
So tracking the metrics that matter is one of our points.
yeah,
Do you want to talk about that? Because setting up the measures is something that you're really good at, Phelan.
yeah. So it's one that we would like. Well, the measurements in this case would be stuff that like your KPIs that you're trying to hit and what's going for those. So making sure that you have some place that you're organizing the data on like what it is you're hoping to accomplish, as well
Yeah.
as making sure that the things you're measuring are not like vanity metrics. Like I want to get 10,000 followers.
Yes. Oh,
That's
yeah. So, yeah, I want to interject. My favorite story around the vanity metrics or the understanding which KPIs are important to the goals.
mm-hmm.
Your goals are here. What you measure is here. They should be able to tell you how many of your goals you're actually getting.
Yeah.
So if your goals are sales, then revenue is what's going to tell you. If your goals are leads, like phone calls, then your Calendly link is going to tell you how many you've booked. If you're looking to make sales and track your sales, you're going to need to do that after the client has moved beyond the marketing and into the business space. So either you have a spreadsheet or you have a CRM, so you have some way that you're actually, when you get those calls, who called, when did they call, and what happened after that? That's going to be super important information. Most people are tracking, like marketers can track until the point of a sales call, and that's it. Like we cannot
Mm-hmm.
go beyond that. So that's also really important if you want to know the direct impact. Sometimes you know that if you're getting a certain number of leads and you're getting a certain number of sales, you can attribute those certain number of sales to those leads, even if you don't have a direct link. And you'll know that because you'll be doing it long enough that when you start to change your marketing, those leads will change. The number
Mm-hmm.
of leads will change. And so we used to get clients, one client in particular who the KPIs were so off to his business goals, wanted to track the number of calls, but he wanted me to report on the reach of a Facebook ad,
Yeah.
which was to me in my mind, and he had just heard it somewhere. His business partner, I think, was pushing for it, and I kept saying, why do you want the reach is one thing because you could actually get phenomenal reach just by putting money into something. But then it doesn't, if nothing converts, if nothing happens after that point, it could be a terrible ad. So a terrible ad can have a huge reach. What you
Hmm.
really want are bigger conversions of that traffic. And if you're getting, it's better to actually get smaller reach and more conversions. Like that gap is different than to have
Yeah.
a huge reach and these tiny conversions or no conversions at all. That's the important part. Okay, I feel like I'm stepping on my soapbox here.
No,
But
no, no.
yeah, make sure that your KPIs are organized to the marketing that you're doing. The marketing you're doing is organized to the business goals that you're looking to achieve.
Yeah.
That all has to be in alignment.
Yeah, just to go off of that as well, one of the classic stories I have is that we were working with a jeweler who was spending money on Facebook ads, and we could show in the analytics that she spent like was getting a lot of paid traffic. People were coming to the site, but like got basically no sales. Like there was negative ROI
Yeah,
on it. But I showed her
yeah,
the Google ads. People are filling out the forms for the custom. So every dollar she was
yeah,
spending with the Google ads, she was making probably $10 off of that. And so the ROI was in the custom pieces that she was selling. And that was one
right.
that you could demonstrate by going through and being like, okay, we spent money on both platforms. Which one generated us actual revenue, not just clicks, not
Yeah,
just people coming to
yeah,
the site, but like actually doing that part. So that's one thing to really keep in mind. So you're, yeah, definitely making sure that your metrics that you're following are working.
yeah,
And also don't get another on the flip side of metrics is when you're starting a new channel, a new marketing channel, don't get discouraged right away because you're still in the experimental
yes,
phase. You don't want to
yes,
get
yes,
like you're starting something new. It will take time to get traction, take testing. So don't get
yeah.
discouraged.
In the
It
first month.
yeah, or the first two when you're like trying stuff
Yeah,
out and like you don't know if people are getting it, if you're getting a lot of traction or all that stuff. And so that's definitely one to kind of keep in mind. Um, it's definitely, I mean, it's busier than ever online. And so it's
yeah.
just finding your people. It may take some work to get in front of them.
Yeah, and if your service provider is not providing you with the channels and the conversions and they're just giving you clicks and reach, then you need to find a new provider. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
I'm still surprised at how many providers send that information over in an email to me, and I can't even say what's going. Sometimes a client will send me what's going on for them currently, and I'm looking at the business going, I don't even know how you can assess what's happening here because they're just giving you information from the ads account and not what's happening on your website. So get
Yeah.
that because you should be able to stream out like Facebook ads, Facebook organic, Google ads, Google organic, LinkedIn. You should be able to see all of that very specifically in your reporting. And if that's not set up, it's usually because they're not using Tag Manager to set that up so that it splits all that channels out before it gets to Google Analytics because Google Analytics doesn't do that on its own. So
Yeah.
that's a really important piece to know. Do you have a tag manager account? Is it set up properly? And usually, if you're working with somebody in one of the ads, they will at least set it up to pull out their ad streams. They might not do it for all of the streams,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
I've definitely seen that with like a Facebook ads company that just didn't even bother with the Google Analytics. They were just like,
Yeah,
I set up my own conversion tracking and be damned with the rest of you.
yeah,
And that does happen.
yeah.
I'm not faulting anyone. It's honestly they do set it up for their particular channel that you're paying them for.
It's usually, yeah, it's also usually that you've got a starter package. Starter packages don't always come with setup stuff because the setup it's like a lot to set something up. So if you're not actually paying for that separately, then chances are you're getting the minimum amount of setup to begin with anyways.
Yeah,
Um, all right, but let's get back to that. So okay, so we've hit alignment and business goals. We've hit tracking that matters. Um,
do you want to
and
talk
then,
about accountability? Because that was one that
yeah, I
you had
do.
mentioned.
Yeah, I do. So that's I think this is sort of a business owner's growth um, issue, it's usually solopreneurs or people with small teams that always talk about this. So accountability, do you have somebody that's helping you stick to your plan? So it goes back to one of the first things that I mentioned, which was, are you reviewing your plan
Yeah.
regularly? Are you reviewing your results? We talked about the KPIs. And then do you have somebody to keep you on that? Because I think what we inevitably sometimes do when we're starting out and we just have a few people helping us out, we tend to get stuck doing the work for our clients and in our business rather than on our business. So we always want to be making sure that we are checking our stuff and we are seeing what other channel can I look at? What do I need to do next? What is the best thing for my business? Do I have enough organic that's ongoing that will help eventually, maybe not right away? And or do I have any ads at all running? You know what I mean? You want kind of like an even keel between organic and ads in my mind, that they work very, very well together. Um, and so you want that accountability. So I have a coach. Highly recommend working with a coach. And each week I don't have to, I choose to. It was actually my idea. It wasn't even my coach's idea, but I actually write down my 12-month rolling revenue. So I
Mm.
keep that. I know exactly every month where what my rolling revenue is, so that I know how far off from my target I am. And sometimes when you're doing rolling 12 months, it's a little bit different than your fiscal year. So you're rolling 12 months, you kind of go up and down a little bit, and then you can kind of look where. And this has been so pivotal for my business, because what I realized is that my projects are getting bigger, and my I do cash. I guess it's probably a little bit different for other people, but I do cash accounting. So we put things through when we pay them, not when they're invoiced necessarily. And so what ends up happening is the payments get a little bit further apart. So now I know, do I need to add an extra payment in there to make my business grow better and to help me manage that?
Yeah.
Do I need to sell more? And I know that you guys we've talked about this before, the nice little balance point of how much more can I sell before I completely collapse as a business, or
Yeah.
before I have to hire a new person. So these things will help you. Always reviewing those things will help you understand when you need to pull in new help, when you can start looking for that before you start increasing your sales, maybe in one particular product or service. What can you focus on? Who's not working very much for you? What can you focus on selling that will increase your revenue without breaking you? Those are the things, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was just going off of that, and my mind it instantly reminded me of like when you're doing anything regarding sales or
Hmm.
kind of taking on work, is to also be looking at how many resources, and how you're going to allocate those resources. Do you need to hire
Yes.
someone new? Hiring requires training, so there's things as well, like having your sales hopper. I know it's sometimes easier said than done to have it, and having, but being, you know, working to that goal of having a certain amount of your CRM with different people at different stages, so that you can increase or decrease levers as is needed.
Yeah.
I think that
Yep.
that's something to really keep in mind. And it's, I mean, it's the ideal is to have it. I mean, it's easier said than done, because, you know, life is life, and you're not always going to have people perfectly at these, you know, spots for you. But having that as a goal to reach towards, I think is going to be, would be beneficial for your business, to have people at different stages, so that if you need to fill up more people, you're not in a panic. You can just kind of reach
Yes.
out to certain people and be like, hey, so and so, we spoke a couple months ago. Are you ready to move forward? And then if they are, great, and then you can move them ahead. But like
Yeah.
having it so, again, it's easier said than done. So don't beat yourself up if this isn't the case for you. But
Totally.
yeah, like I just realized, I'm like, yeah, try not to give someone like a panic attack about all the things they would need to do. But it's you're working to an ideal, and you're not always going to necessarily be
Hit
there.
that.
But yeah,
Yeah.
because
Growth
it's
is
life.
uncomfortable, and we don't talk about that very much. Growth is uncomfortable.
Yeah,
You know, when you have a growth mindset, you are always uncomfortable. But
yeah,
the other thing that I wanted to talk about that. So the more you're looking at your business rather than working in your business, the more this all becomes, this is what I found, is that the more this all becomes easier to see. So, if you're getting your cash flow reports done properly by your bookkeeper, or if you're doing them yourself, you're forecasting all of that stuff, you really see things a lot sooner. So for example, I'm really excited. I think the thing that I'm excited about most is that I'm hiring, and I don't need the person until January 18th. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? This
Yeah.
is the most in advanced hiring I've ever done. Usually I'm like this. Hey Pip, do you know somebody who can do this? And
Yeah.
I'll say that to about three or four other people in my colleagues in my network, and then I'll sort of look to who those people bring to me. Whereas this time we're doing it a little bit slower. We're going to be able to find a really good fit, and get out of that uncomfortable situation in that particular uncomfortable situation. There are plenty of other uncomfortable positions I'm in at the moment, but that's one that I feel like I've handled okay. So planning, the more you look basically at your plans, your marketing plan, your business, and then looking at those numbers regularly, the easier these little signals, you'll see them sooner, and
Yeah.
you'll start to notice patterns and those types of things to know what do you need to do now, right? So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
without, yeah,
And again, cannot stress enough. Do not beat yourself up if that's not the case. Like this
yeah,
is mostly because I'm almost speaking to myself because I feel bad sometimes about like not getting
yeah,
certain thing done, and you have
yeah,
to give yourself some grace that is you're there's a especially if you're doing the kind of stuff we're doing where you're running an agency and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of plate spinning. There's a million people coming at you with a million things, and so yeah, you're not going to get every single one of them. So don't think that you're doing something wrong. I also stand by one thing that Mark Andreessen said because he's one of the top VC executives. Is he's like, yeah, I meet with the guys from Google and Facebook. Like those companies, they're on fire behind the scenes. They may put on a
yeah.
brave face and a brave facade, but like never forget, Facebook blocked their own DNS servers because they never thought their
That's
power
right.
would be out, and they did,
That's
and
right.
they couldn't get WhatsApp up for a day, like that, like
Yeah.
so. Just remember that, like even the biggest
Yep.
businesses are on fire. They're barely
Oh,
keeping it
totally.
together, and
There's
yeah, go ahead.
There's no point. There's no point in beating yourself up. I mean, I love the fact that The Gap sent out an email with a huge spelling mistake in the middle of it. Like, I point that out to my clients all the time because they get so upset if there's something not quite right or a link is broken or something like that. But there are large brands that are sending out stuff, and it's not ideal. Of course, it's not ideal, but
No.
things are happening super fast and they will be missed. And it's not a big deal to send out a second email with the correction in the subject line.
Oh
It
yeah.
really is not. And to keep your eye on the prize rather than on the micro stuff, like those are the details that are a little bit easier to let go of sometimes. So
Yeah.
we have another couple of topics here that I want to make sure we get, because it's 28 minutes after. I don't know how that happened. So we hit flexibility quite a bit.
Yeah.
Resource allocation, I think, is the next one, and communication. So let's just do resource allocation. I think we can sort of organize those two in three sentences, hopefully. And then you can put your two bits into. But resource allocation. So either you're going to have, well, ideally, you're going to have time and money for your marketing. But generally
Dare to
speaking,
dream.
you either have time, yeah, you either have, dare to dream, you either have time or you have money, but you need to have resources. So every time I put a marketing goal and I figure out what I need to make that goal happen. Is it people? Is it time? Is it software? Is it what is it that I'm going to need? And then I cost that out. So I spent last night doing my budget. I did my marketing plan in October. I filled out my budget last night that is going to be used to support that marketing plan. And people often ask me, how much should I be spending on marketing? And a rough ballpark is between 5 and 20% of what your expected revenue is going to be. And some people get a little bit uptight about that, but you do need to put money into getting getting leads, or you have to do a ton of networking. And if you're going to do that kind of networking, we all know my favorite networking group, but but um, but you're going to need one or the other. So you're going to have to figure out where is your best, what is it that's going to best serve you um, in your plan? Should you be, if are you a marketer? Should you be doing all of your own marketing? Are you not a marketer? Should you offload pieces of your marketing at least, or can you use a VA to do some things for you, like scheduling and the sort of tasks that are not so tricky? But you're going to have to figure out where your resources are. There's absolutely zero point in having a plan that says I want to make $500,000 in sales, and I don't have any money to do that right now, and you're not going to put the time in to do that. You're going to have to really have a hard chat with yourself about about what you're going to do. If you're going to spend 4 extra hours a day doing your own marketing, or at least put a little gate around your time for a couple hours every day where you're going to do your marketing, then those things can work out. But you're going to have to do one or the other. You can't. Things don't come to you without some form of resources. And
Yeah.
then the last one that I wanted to remind you is that when you make up a plan and you're working with marketing people, share the plan. I can't tell you how frustrating it is to find out that a client has a business plan or a marketing plan, and it's in my intake form. Do you have this? Please send it over. But they'll miss it, or I'll ask and I'll ask and I'll ask, and then it doesn't come. But you need to share your marketing plan with your marketers so that they can best serve you. So your digital marketing person is going to want to know what you're doing across all of your well, I think they do. I certainly do. I want to know what my clients are doing, even if I'm not in charge of doing it, because it's much better, instead of giving me a task, to let me see the overview so I can see opportunities where you don't know where to look, so that I can best support the other channels, the other goals, the other things.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I've absolutely had that with a client that um just yeah. One other thing that you don't get mad with clients when they had do
Well, that's
they
true. That's
they
true.
don't they don't mean to, but clients almost always will lie. Like I mean that, like, they don't mean that, they don't do it maliciously. They just forget because they also have a million things going at
Or
them.
they just don't know. They just don't
Or
know. So they'll say they know they have their target market, and their target market is
or
everybody, and you
or they would
understand that they
word it a
don't.
different way,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, you meant
Yeah.
this thing. Oh yeah, totally, I have
Yeah.
that. And then you were
Yeah.
sitting there pulling your hair out going, well, you had this the whole time. And so yeah, and that's one of those ones that you just need to kind of like take
Took
a
me a
deep
while. Took
yeah
me
take
a
a deep
while
breath.
to really remember to ask for things that I need repeatedly, and until
Eh,
I got them.
yeah.
Yeah, and now
And
I've got Deanne who does that for me, which is really great.
yeah, that's good. And so yeah, the other I was gonna say with um the other thing is that you're gonna run into situations that you may not even realize that you could be helping out those other channels. Like we've had clients that we were only doing PPC, but it turns out I
Yeah.
needed to track their general form, not the landing page form as well, because there was
Yes.
people would see our ad and then come back and do this other one. So we wound up picking up like 30% more attribution to this other form because people saw the ad, later came back to the site, did regularly through organic.
Yeah.
And so we could track that on the attribution path. I didn't even think about it until we were like 6 months into it. And I
Right.
wound up, basically doubling the number of leads because we could say, hey, they went to this and then
Yeah.
they came back to the website like within the day. So our ad was working even better than we thought. And so I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
a lot of these ones of ways of tracking and weaving it in, because attribution is an absolute pain in the it's just a pain to kind of properly, like, who really deserves it. Every ad company is going to say that, oh, we should take all the credit, and it's just
No, this
not the
is
way it
where
works.
marketing as a group effort really works for me,
Hmm.
because honestly, Facebook ads really help, Google ads really help, organic Google, and so on and so on. And if you can understand the superpowers of each individual channel and then utilize that to help the rest of your marketing team, it just makes life so much easier for everyone. And then we all win because the client wins. And that's the bottom line.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally.
Yeah. Ayo. Uh,
Sorry. I
no, it's
love
good.
that
It was
though.
good. It was good accounting joke.
All right, so we've gone 5 minutes over. I think we should probably just wrap up there, and we think we hit at least a few points on each of our
Yeah,
a few.
I
Yeah,
feel like we covered everything that we were gonna do. And
great.
so it's just to say, next week we're gonna be doing the year in review.
That's
I think
right.
it's gonna
My
be,
favorite.
yeah. Oh yeah, it's definitely gonna be one. I already have certain things that I'm gonna be touching on that have big changes this year for marketing, and so I think that that'll
Totally.
be interesting to kind of take a look back and a look forward.
Right. So join us next week wherever you're watching this week, or you can find us. Come find us. We actually operate out of the Facebook group, the
Yeah.
Business Marketing Mixer. You can ask questions on any of the channels, and we'll get back to you and answer as best we can. And see you next.